This video came up because my colleagues and friends who are educators, private and public school teachers, have been asking me about the how of online learning for children or young learners. Although I have been into digital and multimedia learning, organizing my thoughts is quite challenging and cumbersome. Online learning as a support to regular face-to-face learning in a classroom is substantially different when e-learning becomes the new norm of education. And I guess many teachers are not quite prepared technically for this novel norm of learning. Another conundrum in conceptualizing the content of this video is the context of COVID-19 pandemic. How do we engage children to online learning processes in the midst of the global health catastrophe, collective uncertainties, shared anxieties, and economic crisis? Therefore, given such scenario, expect my presentation to be a kind of synergy of humanism, academics, curriculum, and a sort of technical elements. At the end of this video, the teacher should be able to first understand the fundamentals of children's online learning. The second is to plan, implement, and evaluate children's online learning. And the third is to conceptualize online learning within the context of children's needs during the COVID-19 pandemic situation. Let me first present to you the content of this video. First, we're going to look into the elements and fundamentals of online learning for children. The second is planning, implementing, and evaluating an online lesson for children. And the third is the challenges of online learning for children in a COVID-19 pandemic situation. And the last is the wellness of children in online learning. So what are the fundamental elements of online learning for children? So let me present to you the 5 areas: the curriculum, the digital learning platform, the learning structure, the time, and the collaboration between teachers and parents. Let us now look at these areas one by one. Process-wise, dynamics-wise, e-learning is substantially different from face-to-face classroom learning. E-learning is not just a simple migration of a face-to-face classes to online platform. Learning online has unique yet complex dynamics. Although children have been using technology and internet in regular classes, online classes a shift is a different story. Thus, teachers need training, at least in the most basic, on how to plan, implement, and evaluate e-learning. The dynamics of children's learning on e-learning. Children will shift from classroom to home online learning. And it means that many elements will change, as the learning space, social encounters, forms of communication, delivery of lessons, and other learning materials. It is entirely a different learning dynamics, and we simply have to be aware of the different elements that might be impacting the new norm of learning. With the issue of pandemic, learning becomes more of individual process. Individual or remote independent learning is an inevitable norm. Peer or group engagement might be challenging, but you can always explore its possibility in terms of collaborative output or just simply for the sake of support system. In this situation, develop a very child-centered curriculum, a curriculum that serves the best interests of children. So we have to be kind of very, very flexible in terms of organizing the curriculum. So I've listed 4 areas here, very practical things that we have to consider. First, we have to develop a very consistent and simple structure in presenting your lesson or your class to the children. And the second one is focus on 1 or 2 subjects a day. Having 5 subjects a day can be very, very overwhelming for children. And the third one is within the subject, focus on 1 topic or 1 lesson. simplified organization and delivery of lesson. And for example, and to demonstrate that at the right side with the blue background, so I have here the subject, for example, science, and the topic is about healthy food, and you can still simplify that. We can make it more specific. And I only have two structures here, two outlines. What do they need to learn, and what do they need to do? And I'm going to elaborate that more on the next slides. And the last one is to develop a system to monitor and measure children's holistic development. Part of organizing the curriculum is choosing the learning platform. Using learning platforms that are user-friendly, child-friendly, use one software which children can easily master, and do not mix up the use of learning platform. Just imagine if you're using different kinds of platform, Zoom, Teams, or what else, the Google Classroom. So if you mix this up, so if you have 5 teachers and different teachers are using different platforms, that can be very, very confusing to children. So I'm giving here examples of the very popular platforms available now, the Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom, and some, but you can still explore other things that you believe might be very, very easy for children to use. When you think about the curriculum, you cannot set aside the element of time. The dynamics of time changes when learning happens at home. The online learning schedule cannot be simply the same with the regular face-to-face classroom timing. On the other hand, it is necessary to set a specific time that is more convenient for students. Regulating the time also matters. Programming children's mind and body to a certain time where they deliver an output is important. In a very challenging scenario, flexibility matters. When we plan or we organize our curriculum, we cannot put aside the role of parents in the e-learning of their children. And I have listed here about 4 or 3 elements that we have to consider. First is to provide clear guidelines on how parents can support their child. And we have to come up with a checklist or a short video or informatics or flyers that contain that elements of support. The checklist probably can include the schedule, the timing, and child responsibilities. The second one is we have to clarify with parents expectations, specifically on the supervision that they can do. Take note what they can do, and emphasize to parents that they are not supposed to do their child's academic tasks or assignments. And the third one is to establish a positive and productive communication process where parents can bring out their concerns pertaining to their child's learning needs. Planning an online learning for children. So what do we need to consider in planning an online learning for children? Again, we do not simply copy and paste lesson plans from a regular classroom and upload them online. Planning requires clarity of educational goals and visions for children. We are not just filling the gap. We want to make a difference in the life of children in this very, very critical era. And planning online learning requires coherence, integration, inclusiveness, progression, measurability, and sensitivity to human needs. It should also empower and inspire children. Let me give you some basic questions that we need to answer in terms of planning. How will you organize the online learning content? How will you make the online learning content meaningful, useful, and relevant to the holistic development of children? Let us continue the process of planning a lesson. When we plan, let us put ourselves at the position of the students. As a student, when you open the computer, how will things appear to you? The color, the font, the graphics. And using the computer, can you easily navigate the content of a lesson? Are the procedures easy to understand? Therefore, looking at planning within the perspective of children, we have to look into their learning capacity, their needs, their diversity, and the limits of online individual learning. And for the basic question that we have to answer, or we have to reflect upon, how will you prepare a lesson online? And the next one is, how will you lay out a lesson online to make it user-friendly? Part of planning is developing or creating a learning outcome. In a remote learning, focus on one or two intended learning outcomes, very simple learning outcomes. During this situation, and depending on children's specific scenario, there is a limit to what they can do or what we can control as a teacher. Therefore, be very simple and practical in developing the ILOs. Take note also that ILO should be very stimulating to the brain, sensory, and memory of children. There are just so many ways, varied ways by which we can present our lesson online. Let me give you very few examples of this. We can do some video explainer, to start a lesson, and some kind of infographic or storytelling. Children would love to listen to story. Just make sure you are presenting story or narratives in a very exciting, in a very engaging way, and some kind of doable starter activity. And take note, you are doing it online. This is very important now, and in the era of the social media, we have to maximize the use of the multimedia, the social media for learning. Utilize the social media platform which children have been using. So many children are into it already, so might as well maximize its use to augment some learning exercises online. With social media, they can share something about poetry that they compose, the songs, the drawing, their stories, and this can be very engaging and very interesting for children. And this is also a way for meaningful connections among children. So children also longing to meet each other. So it may be a way to share what they have with each other. And the caveat, there's a warning for this, we have to orient the children on the positive and ethical use of the social media. Also in planning, we have to emphasize also the development of critical and creative thinking skills. So let me lay down some areas that we have to consider. First, we have to make children reflect on the pandemic as an opportunity to grow. So they can think about what does it mean to me? What does this situation mean to me and the future of the children? The second one is children can look at pandemic with the use of logical reason. And the third one is children can use whatever they have in their house to express their creativity. Okay. And the third one is to allow children to experiment on different modalities in expressing themselves, like poetry, song, storytelling, and use of mass media or dance and like. Another crucial part and essential part of planning is the assessment. How are we going to monitor? How are we going to measure the learning of children? We can measure the learning of children or the output of children in terms of learning by looking at some of these areas. It's only just few among the many examples, but these are the most fundamental that we have to look into or we can use. The first is the deliverable output, just something that they can deliver after the end of the lesson that they can submit to you. And the next one is the answering a specific question, simple question. And the third one is solving a problem. Okay, doing a creative stuff within some creative things that wherein the materials can be found inside their house. So do not demand something that is beyond their means. And the last one is doing something practical and meaningful inside their house, nothing beyond their house. Right, for the sake of emphasis, we cannot let go of assessment. This is our only way to monitor the learning of children. Teachers have to plan very well the assessment. Assessment should not add up to the stress of children. Again, I emphasize, do not make assessment as an added stress for children. Develop an assessment that is more meaningful to them and at the same time would shape their critical and creative thinking skills. So in terms of assessment for learning, let us try to consider these qualifiers. Assessments should be engaging. It engages the children towards that assessment, and it evokes imagination. It is fun. It is meaningful. It is growth promoting. It's practical. It's useful for them. Easy to do. Easy to understand. Shapes critical and creative thinking skills. And last, there's kind of element of surprise or excitement. So if we have all these assessments, so it gives you an assurance that your assessment is stress-free. Learning linkages. Give students at least 3 to 5 useful linkages that are very much related to the subject that you teach. E-learning resources should be easy to read. It's developmentally, fitting to the children. Is very accessible to them and free. They have nothing to pay. Okay, that's very, very important. Now let's get into the implementation of learning and online learning. So what do we need to consider? So the first is stick to your plan. Do not deviate to your plan. Try to focus on what you have planned. And the second one is do some random monitoring of students. How do you do this? You can probably connect online, call them, just try to ask what's happening. Are things going well? What can be some of the concerns that you encounter? And the clarity of layout. Just make sure the layout of your lesson online is very child friendly. And the next one is, the last one is well edited content before posting online or before uploading it online, or making it very visible already for the children to work on. Just make sure it's very well edited. Remember, we are teachers. Although we cannot be perfect, but we give our 100% in terms of organizing our content or editing our content, and make sure the layout is almost crystal clear. As teachers, in terms of the way we teach, the way we look at ourselves, in terms of our responsibility and roles, what keeps us growing is the aspect of evaluation. If we really want to grow as a teacher in what we do, so we need to solicit feedback, and that is the aspect of evaluation. So what do we need to consider in evaluation? Evaluation is our way to improve our online learning services. Okay, solicit feedback from children and parents, or even some teachers. When they look at your work, then they probably give a feedback on what we need to improve on, in terms of how they experience the online learning, their suggestions or difficulties. Reflect, and the last one is to reflect on the output of children. It can tell us so many things, not only about the children's learning, but the whole system of online learning. Part of the evaluation process is the motivational feedback. Giving feedback is an empowering process that encourages children to learn more Teachers should develop a very timely and general feedbacking strategy. A short video, a GIF, a poster, or a simple note or emoji, smileys, that highlights the children's strengths and areas that they need to improve. So it gives the clarity of where the children are. It's a consciousness. You build the consciousness that as a child that they are growing in terms of learning. So giving a time of feedback is very, very important. The important part of evaluation process is the open communication. You can never get into evaluation if you're not very flexible in terms of your mind is not open to receiving communication processes among your colleagues, the children, and the parents, or the community of learners. So in terms of open communication, we have to provide an avenue where children can express their thoughts and feelings about their learning, their difficulties, what is meaningful to them, what is more enjoying. These will provide teachers what they need to improve and what they can add to create a more productive and positive e-learning or digital learning environment. This also creates an understanding on the part of the children that their teachers are available or open to support them. Related to the feedback is the reward system. For completing the tasks, the children can probably get some points, and those points can earn them a gift that they can claim when they return to school. Or you can plan this also in collaboration with the parents. So this simple thing of recognition of what they have accomplished, affirming their strength, the strength of children in terms of e-learning is very, very important, because in this very, very challenging time, children needs to hear something that's very positive, especially when it comes from the teacher. So create an effort to pass on the positive vibes of bringing a high note on what they have accomplished in their learning. In conceptualizing an e-learning or digital learning for children, we don't overlook a very important context of learning today, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. We cannot set that aside, because these are the major things that are impacting not only the children but everybody in the whole world. So we have to pay attention to that, on how we can probably align that so that we can make use of that to empower children in the midst of this situation. So there are some challenges that we would like to present to you that you have to look into. So first, we have to look into the technical challenges. Children can be facing technical challenges in digital learning, such as the following: slow internet connection, one computer shared by other siblings. So there might be 4 children in a house sharing for one computer, and that can be quite challenging. And parents have limited understanding of technology and softwares, which makes them helpless, or which make them helpless in technical troubleshooting. So take note of that also. We are in a crucial and risky phenomenon, the COVID-19 pandemic. It changes the dynamics of e-learning. There are so many considerations that we have to pay attention to given the current global crisis. For instance, some families might be experiencing financial difficulty, or parents lost their jobs, or a family member got infected, or there's a family member who is a frontliner in the hospital. Therefore, the mind of children is not only on the e-learning. Children are also preoccupied or affected negatively by the situation. So when we plan about online learning, it's not only purely academics. We have to to look into the holistic well-being or the holistic wellness of children. And when we talk about the whole well-being of children, so let us look into the 7 areas of wellness. We have the physical wellness, the social wellness, the emotional wellness, the cognitive wellness, the communication wellness, the ecological wellness, and the spiritual wellness. I will not elaborate more of this. I will have a separate video on this. But what I'm trying to emphasize here, so you have to look at the life of a child as a whole when you're organizing an online learning in the midst of pandemic. Okay, still related to the well-being of children, we have to be aware that the prolonged use of computer can create negative impact in the physical well-being of children, such as the strained eyes, back pain, hand pain or neck pain, and headache. So we make sure that with the way we plan, they would not be spending the whole day facing the computer or their tablets, for that matter. Again, also in terms of the well-being of children or the wellness of children, let us try to find a way to incorporate activities that will help children become more mindful of their own well-being, such as the washing of hands exercise, body exercise, physical exercise, taking of vitamins, drinking enough water, social distancing, hygiene, and the like. In these challenging times, make learning as a healthy and empowering option to manage stress and anxiety. In short, learning should not add to children's burden. We do not only have to pay attention to the wellness of children in terms of online learning, we also have to pay attention to our well-being, to our wellness as teachers, because we are also human beings. We have our own sensibilities as a person. We have our needs as a person, and we cannot just take that for granted. And truly, e-learning is a very challenging situation. It's a very challenging scenario for all of us in this time of pandemic. But at the end of the day, regardless of those challenges, we don't set aside taking care of our own lives. If there is one example we can give children realistically on how to deal with life in this very, very challenging time, in this very crucial time of our lives, it is how we value our lives. So we have to take care of our own wellness, our own well-being. Taking care of the wellness of children is also about taking care of our own wellness. E-learning or digital learning is not only about technicality, it's also about our humanity. So we make sure as teachers that we humanize e-learning. After all, our children, our students are human beings. The teachers are human beings. When our contact with children become virtual, let us not forget that we are human beings who have emotions, and we long for real social connection and support. Even when we digitize learning, let us not forget to emphasize the humanity of learning. After all, the only reasons why we uphold learning is to bring out the positivity and productivity in human beings. With digital learning, create a virtual space where children shine, where their humanity shines, and teachers' humanity also shine. My dear teachers, my dear friends, my dear colleagues, thank you so much for listening. And we still have more questions, things that you would like to clarify in terms of e-learning. You can always connect with me. We can always share experiences. We can always, share our resources so that we can actually build a very, very cohesive, very humanistic, and very effective way of delivering um, education to young learners, the children. Thank you so much, and God bless.